It is 0 degrees here in Maine.
Wow.
Good morning, family.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We don't quite fit in out there, but together here we
Wow.
all fit in.
Good morning,
in
family.
amazing ways.
Hey, is that Sean? What's his name?
Yeah, that guy.
Hey, Jew.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, it's a Sean thing. You might not understand. Good morning. Let me hit the record here. Hey, good morning, Misfits. It is Tuesday. I got to look at the thing here. January 20. Is it the 21st? Did I get that right? Yes, I did. January 21st, 2020. It is the morning call, the daily awakening call. We've been doing this since December 18th, 2018. Yeah, it seems like a while. It doesn't seem too long, but I can tell you this, it seems just about right. We have these conversations each and every morning, and these conversations are designed to awaken us. They're not always my topic. They're hardly ever my topic. It's a topic I receive through meditation in the morning. I do my best to meditate 2 hours a day. Hopefully, most of the times, a contiguous time of 2 hours, spending listening and awakening. Usually, if you've paid attention to our calls, if you've watched any of the videos, if you've been one of the misfits who've been on our calls here regularly, you see some amazing things happen just there at the end of the call. How many of you noticed that? How many of you have seen where something pretty cool happens just as we're about to wrap it up and one more thing happens? Yesterday, it was Ivan and just a simple movement of a device. Just a simple movement of a device. And all of a sudden, his body, we could physically see a change in his body. One of the things he wanted to do was absolutely answered in the simple movement of a device. And we could all see the physical manifestation of his glory, of his joy. Folks, these are things that happen. My experience, for those of you, anyone first time on this call, just drop a number 1 in the chat. We all want to send you some love. We want to thank you. We want to appreciate you. I want to thank the person that shared this with you. Somehow you found this. Latoya. Oh, yeah. If this is your first time, welcome, welcome. Great to have you here. Know this. If you're ready to listen, right, we had that conversation yesterday. If you're ready to listen, you'll hear something you haven't heard before. You'll feel a way you haven't felt before. Not because of what I say, it's because of the way you tuned in, the energy that exists inside this community. My name is Sean Murphy. I've been a teacher and trainer. I've been in this profession of MLM, me loving more, mentors leading mentors. I've been in this profession for 22 years. I've stood on stage in 30 plus countries. I've been translated into over 40 different languages. I'm a 3-time #1 Amazon bestseller. All of that and 25 cents gets you what? 25 cents. It's the experience that you're here for, mine and the others, and the way that our conversations intermingle into this soup, into this broth of success, this broth of awareness, this soup of creativity. Because it's not always what I say, it's how you respond to what I say. It's not always what you say, it's how you respond to what you say. And that's what we're having a conversation about this morning. The conversation today is called separate. Now, depending upon how you say it, separate, meaning apart from, or separate, kind of the action word of taking something apart. If I were to say, I need you to separate this cloth, you would say, well, what's it in? Take it out of the bag, separate it from the other cloths. But if I were to hand you this one cloth, this cleaning rag, and say, separate it, you might do something different. You might start to cut it in half. You might cut it into pieces. You may try to figure out where you can find a strand and start to pull the strand out. That's what I want to talk to you today about. I want to have a conversation with today about separating yourself from the old story. How many of you have ever seen or had to know somebody that's had an operation? Maybe you've had an operation where they need to remove something from the body, be it a tumor or otherwise. My mom had a couple of those. They were cancerous but benign, but they had to go in and remove them. They were pushing on optic nerves. They were making her stability off. So they would go in and they would separate the tumor from the brain. Now, sometimes if the tumor has all of those little lesions and fibrous parts of it that go out to it, it's hard to separate. My point is this: if we sit down and we look at your story and you start to tell me your story, I doubt there's a moment. I would find it very challenging that moment that you could sit down and tell me an individual story that's not tied to every other story. See, part of the challenge is, oh yeah, look at Heather. I had 4 organs removed. Wow. I think that's one of the stories that ran through my head when I was thinking about this. That's not a surgery. They just go in and go, oh, yep, easy. And they're not even sure what they're going to get to until they get in there. How many of you understand this? How many of you are grasping this? Here's why. Because here's the thing. When we sit down to meditate, when we sit down to have a conversation, when we sit down to say we're going to succeed, we're going to change our story, we're going to add something new to our story, we're going to say enough is enough, the day we've had enough. The emotional strength, the emotional fortitude that it takes to give up part of your old story, to give up the thing that has made you, to give up as much as an organ, there needs to be surgical precision to remove these things from your body. What do you mean, my body? This is just about, it's an old story. It's self-talk. Self-talk is stored in your body. If you're more than 7 years old, I think the body rebuilds itself every 7 years. If you're more than 7 years old, then my guess is your body has replaced itself. If you're more than 14 years old, your body has replaced itself. If you're closer to 21 years old, your body has replaced itself. If you're somebody like my dear friend Ray Barbuto up there, your body has been replaced at least twice, maybe 3 times at the most. Yeah, 10 times. Here's my point. How can you remember things from childhood if your body has been replaced? If the cells that happened when you were a child, and those cells that happened when you were a child and the story was imprinted into you, how is it still with you 50 years later, 20 years later? Because it got wired into your body. It got wired into your cell reproduction. How do you do things like your father did? How do you do things like your grandfather did? How do you act and say things like your mother did? It's part of your makeup. So when we say, I am rich, your whole body goes, I am strong. I am powerful. I am statements are very powerful. They're absolutely powerful. But you know what it takes behind it? Faith and belief. Faith that it's possible and belief so strong there is no doubt. Very few people have the ability to say an I am statement that is doubt-free. So then where then does the doubt exist? Doesn't exist in me. I believe you're powerful. I think you're more powerful. I know you're more powerful than you are right now. I know you can do more. I know you can be more. I know you can have more. I know this. I've seen it. That nobody can convince me otherwise. You, the listener, you can have more. Today, you can have more. You could also have less. That I know. Less frustration, less anxiety, less fear, less doubt. So how do you separate this old story? How do you unravel this old story? Just like Heather was talking about, where they've got to remove parts of things that grow over each other, and they've got to remove them and separate them. It's tedious. It's why journaling does that. Journaling gives you a chance to rewrite. Journaling gives you a chance to separate the old story from the new story. Part of the reason the old story hangs on, it's just like the guy at the corner who, or the server that wouldn't leave your table unless you gave him a tip. Right? How many times do we see in the movies where it's kind of comical, where the bag boy brings up the bags and he kind of stands there like this, waiting for a tip, waiting for a gratuity. And like you'll see somebody come by and they'll put their gum in his hand and he'll be like, your old story is waiting to be thanked so it can go on its way. One of the easiest ways, one of the best ways to separate itself. Home Alone 2, yeah, exactly. One of the best ways to separate yourself, to give yourself distance from your old story, is to thank it. Now, I know that seems hard. And I've dealt with people, I've worked with people who have had tragic situations. And at some point, there's this realization of why that situation happened, or what was the previous situations that allowed you to deal with the tougher situation. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh my gosh, I never saw it that way. It's the Wayne Dyer effect. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Do you have a list of the things you'd want to separate from you? And it doesn't mean they'll ever go away, because the fact that you separate yourself from it, the fact that that story no longer has power over you, doesn't mean it doesn't still exist. But if 50% of our memories are not the real memory, what are the chances are you've made things worse than they were? What are the chances? There's a chance. So how would you separate? How would you begin to separate? If you've ever seen anybody give you a scarf that's knitted, or even worse, not worse, but a different perspective. When I would wear dress shirts with buttons on it, and there was that one string, how many of you remember the first time you pulled the string on a button? And you learned, don't do that again. Don't do that. You come up with all of the different ways. Wrap it around the button, because if you pull that string, somehow it unravels all of the thread in the button, and the button just goes, whoop, what the hell happened? What was that? Sometimes we're afraid we're going to pull the wrong string. But what if it was that simple to pull a string and the button just falls to the ground? The old story falls to the ground. The old story no longer exists. It's there. We know there used to be a button there. The challenge is just like a shirt, that now all of a sudden you got the button. There's nothing to go in the buttonhole, and the buttonhole opens up, and that shirt is constantly pooching out, right? It's making that big bulge right there, and people can see into your chest. How many of us have ever been embarrassed when somebody saw in our shirt because our button was unbuttoned? We talk about personal development all the time. We're talking about removing old stories from ourselves. We're talking about us getting better. Sometimes our buttons are going to fall off and people are going to see inside. It's called vulnerability. Yesterday, when we were talking there at the end of the conversation, when I was talking with Ivan, I asked him, is he coachable? He said, yes. I said, move the device. He moved the device, and that all of a sudden something changed in his body. We saw a new side of him. He became instantly vulnerable. If you remember hearing the story, he said, I didn't think I was at an equal with my audience. This whole idea of holding the phone down so low. Could you imagine if every conversation required you to carry around a 3-foot step ladder? And that each time you spoke to somebody, whoever was speaking had to get up on the step ladder and look down at the person who was talking to them? Could you imagine if I spent the whole time on the conversation talking to you like this? Man, I hope you have excitement today. I'm really hoping you really, I mean, how long do you have to stare up my nostrils? Does that make sense? I mean, if it doesn't, I don't know. Why not change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change? So if you sat quietly right now for a minute, could you think of a couple of things that are clinging on to you, that are hanging on to you, that aren't bringing you value, that you would really like to separate yourself from? The power of decision making starts with you. My bride said something yesterday, and I said, it's absolutely possible, because I don't believe God sits up there and allows us to have the opportunity to have ideas and go, oh, did you hear that? Michelle had this great idea. There's no way in a snowball's chance in Hades she could ever get that done. Not a chance. I mean, God has a sense of humor. I take that, but I think that would be cruel for us to be able to think of things that we couldn't do. How many of us have absolutely expanded our potential, expanded our ideas and our ideals, And we're doing things now we never dreamed possible before. If you're doing stuff now that you never dreamed possible before, type a P in the chat. Well, how did that happen? How is it possible that you did something you never thought possible before? It's because it's called the continual expansion of our creativity. You were given these gifts at birth. You were given these gifts before birth. When you were ordained to come to this world and come to this planet, and the sperm that won the race made you, allowed you, the whole thing means this. You're here for a reason. There is a purpose for your existence here on this planet. As a teacher, as a student, as a mentor, as a mentee, as a caregiver, as a creator of possibility, as an entrepreneur. If all of these things are possible and all of these things are part of your purpose to be here, what if your purpose was just to be better every day? That principle of Kaizen, 0.1% improvement every day. What would you have to separate yourself from to become better every day? Just 0.1%, you're going to give yourself a new story. You're going to be better than you were a minute ago. How many of you can get better in this moment? How many of you can get better in this moment? How many of you could smile a little bit more? Let's check something out here. Good morning, Fanny. There's Leo. See what happens when we get recognized? There's RBP in the house in her pink robe. Brittany in the back. Look at this. See what happens when we recognize? Elvin's there in the car, boogieing along. Got a peace sign. Peace. Travis is there. Ivan, there's Ivan. Hey, look. We're looking at Ivan. We're not looking up at Ivan. Way to go, Ivan. Y'all get this? Everybody wants recognition. Who could you recognize today? Could you give a little smile today? Could you give somebody just the chance to, maybe their smile has been waiting for years to pop out. And the reason that, how many of us have ever smiled at somebody? Oh yeah, thanks, Ray. Send out your 3 messages of love. So I love having a community like this. We all help each other. Thanks, Ray. Love you, brother. Here's my question to you. Have you ever smiled at somebody and they didn't know how to smile back? And hey, there's Nano. Nano, thanks, brother. You ever smile at somebody and they go, and you know it's just this, it was hard for them to smile? Maybe, possibly because you snapped them out of a funky dream they were having, a funky story that was going on in their life. And mirror neurons are powerful. Mirror neurons are powerful. And they don't know how to smile. Or they smiled oddly. And you're like, why would they be so mean? Maybe you just snapped them out of a dream that was taking them down a rabbit hole that could have been disastrous in their life. And your simple smile snapped them back to reality. What if your job was to help people separate the old story from the new story? What would you have to be an example of? Isn't that what we do in our profession in network marketing, when as being solo entrepreneurs, and we're looking to help people build a business, become an entrepreneur, take on entrepreneurial responsibilities and ownership, be in charge, be in a business for themselves, but not by themselves. All of these things that we say, doesn't this require them to separate some old stories? They're not good enough. They're not smart enough. Could you imagine if I didn't have the entrepreneurial bringing up, the entrepreneurial thrown into the deep end of the pool by my dad growing up? I would have thought I was a failure because I didn't make it through school. I didn't go to university. I drove by a lot of colleges. But that's an old story that I have that lets people know that, well, crap, if he didn't go to school and he wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, maybe I could do what he could do. I could do what he could do better. And if he could do it, I could do it, definitely do it better. I want you to know that. I know you can. But if I didn't have the entrepreneurial spirit growing up on a farm, doing all the things I did growing up, what do you think I would have thought it takes to run a business? What do you think I would have thought it takes to have 7 businesses with over 100 employees? Would I have thought that's possible? If I had parents who told me, we don't do that, our people don't do that, just stay low, keep out of trouble, keep your head down and just do your work, go to work, get a job, come home. If that was what I was told, would I have been able to be an entrepreneur? At some point, we all got woken up. Some point, we all became awake to this world, and we became awake to our potential and our personality. Maybe it was a lover. Maybe it was a relationship we had. Maybe it was a mentor-student relationship. Somebody made us aware of some greatness we didn't know we had inside of us. If you believe there was somebody outside of your family that made you realize you have some pretty powerful greatness, type a T in the chat for truth. So if somebody outside of you made you greatness, where was the story that the outside person had to see? It was already inside of you. We all use these metaphors. You can't get to second base till you take your foot off first base. You can't write the next chapter till you end the first chapter. What is it you have to separate yourself from today? What is the story that's keeping you? Some of you, it's an old relationship. Some of you, it's stories your parents have told you and they're not even around anymore. Some of you, it's a tragedy that happened years ago and you're waiting for some kind of vindication, validation. Well, let me let you in on a little secret. Whatever you're looking for is already inside of you. When you begin to separate your story, not saying forget it, not saying it wasn't important, not saying it doesn't mean anything. What I'm saying is what you're looking for is already inside of you. If you're looking for somebody else to forgive you, it's time for you to forgive you. Separate yourself from that story that it's outside of you. The forgiveness you're looking for is inside of you. If you've ever had an argument with somebody who's not in the room, you'd be crazy. What is the story you're looking to do? What is the story you're looking to have? What do you think you need to separate yourself from? Oh, you're the baby. Good morning, Sammy. Here's my
Good morning.
Good morning. What are things we don't want to be separated from? See, part of the challenges is sometimes we look at what we don't want. What if we took time to figure out what it is we do want? Some of you have realized this if you've watched some of my slides. I'm not the best with English or grammar or spelling. Sometimes things are goofy. That doesn't drive me nuts when I see. I kind of go, there's a spelling error. Okay, at least I know I did it. I did the work. It showed up. It didn't fit a particular benchmark of excellence. I showed up. You know how many people are talking about wanting to do a morning call and aren't? Show up. Separate yourself from the story of you not doing the call, not doing the work. You want to have more people in your business? Separate yourself from the story of not having more people in your business. You want to get healthier? You want to go to the gym every day? Separate yourself from the story of sitting home and being a couch potato. There's some amazing things you do. I'm going to ask you today, something I've done in the past, I've done with my students. One of the things you could do to separate yourself from a mindset of lack is write down the 100 things you've done amazing in this lifetime. Some of you have the capacity to write down 1,000 things you've done amazing. When is the last time you praised yourself? When is the last time you gave yourself credit for getting through all of the things you've done so far? I've asked you to do this previously on previous calls. Some of you may have been on them. Have you written down the 50 things you've done amazing in this world? People look at you and go, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you accomplished that. What would be one of the things? What would be, somebody type in the chat, one thing that you've done amazing in your life that maybe you've forgotten about, that maybe you think, you know what, I guess that is pretty good. Won a championship. Was that yesterday, Nana? Made captain. How many of these things were yesterday? Leo, how long ago was the championship? Was it a month ago, a year ago? First in your family to graduate college. Brianna, that's awesome. Leo, 12 years ago. How many times have you thought about that championship, Leo, between now and the time I asked you to write it down? Between 12 years ago and now, how many times? Many times. Do you realize maybe that's why you're having more of what you want and less of what you don't? Jumped out of an airplane. Love it. Yeah, I remember that. Me jumping out of an airplane was 20 years ago. Remember like it was yesterday. Won the Little League Championship with a Grand Slam home run. Now, that's pretty cool. See, all of these things that I'm asking you to type down right now, helped an elderly lady with her groceries up 5 sets of stairs. How cool is that? See, I'm asking you to write these down. Then I'm going to ask you to put them in your journal. I'm going to ask you to write them down where they can become permanent, because who follows you is also going to have doubt in their life. See, part of your prospecting, part of the presentation should be some of these things you forgot that you were good at. You know, I was asked that when I do a training today with my team, one of the conversations will be, you know, on our call this morning, I asked the community of 98 people that were on the call, what were some of the things that you did that you forgot about? What were some of the things you did amazingly well that you've forgotten about? You know, the reason that I asked people that and the responses that came back was wildly impressive. It moved my heart, because sometimes there's some things we do well in life that, because we're in a constant struggle, we're in a constant battle with good versus evil, becoming better and us being better and dealing with the old story of self-talk, sometimes we talk ourselves out of success because we forget how good we really are. And if we put one more success in this, maybe that's the one we're going to wind up changing some of our audience. Maybe that's the one, if we become a little bit more successful, we'll lose some of our friends we have. And we like things to be the same. We like things to be similar. Here's my point. This conversation that you're having right now is triggering some things in your body, some things in your mind, some emotions about you separating yourself. Imagine if your old story and your new story, the one who is you right now in this moment in the old story, imagine if you were conjoined twins. You were conjoined twins, and you're at one point you're going to be separated. And you each have your own heart, you each have everything, but your blood vessels are all entangled. They're all the old story. Everything goes into you and out of you, into you and out of you. I say all of that to say, how long would that surgery last? And would you do a little bit today, come out of surgery, go back in tomorrow, next week, next month? How long would you want the surgery to last? To separate the old story that you know is holding you back, that you know is slowing you down. It's not that it's a bad story. You're not going to kill it. Maybe you will. But it's just time for it to not be the reason to hold you back, to not be the reason you're dragging your feet, to not be the reason you're slowing down, for you to go to bed at night and go, I know I'm better than this. I know I can do more. I know I can give more. I know I can have more. Why am I being held back? Because of your old story. The 70,000 thoughts a day, it's a freaking math problem. The 6 areas of influence we talked about, it's a math problem. Your environment is keeping you stuck. How many of us go on vacation? How many of us go to an event and we become bold? We become amazing. Why do they say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? Because people do some things that are wildly not their normal when they get to Vegas, be it good, bad, or indifferent. Your environment has a tremendous amount of effect over you. I was just watching a dear friend's live this morning, Jessie Lee. She lives here in Dallas, and she's just a very dear friend, wildly successful in our profession. And she was talking about, I think she's in, I know she's going to Milan tomorrow, but she's doing a European tour. And she talked about how she's realizing why there's so many challenges for us here in the United States. She said, most people don't travel. She said less than half of the people in the United States own a passport. I said, that's true. I said, the other challenge is that statistics show about less than 5% ever travel outside our borders. 360 million people, less than 5% ever travel outside our borders. I've been to places where they have doorknobs in hotels older than our country. Maybe it's time to separate yourself from the fact that we may live in the greatest country, maybe freedom-wise. I know we lack in a whole bunch of other ways, education, healthcare, a variety of things. But what's the story you need to separate yourself from? That maybe it's prejudice, maybe it's racism, maybe it's religion, maybe it's a challenge of all of these things that happen in our life that we're not even 100% sure. Maybe it was something passed down to us. What are the prejudices you carry that really you haven't, it's not been confirmed in your lifetime? It's just been an old story. I grew up, my dad, we used to work in coal mines. We used to sell. I've been a salesman, like you've heard, my entire life. Since I'm 5 years old, I was selling corn off a hay wagon. Literally selling 12 ears for $1. The reason I tell you that is because I've been in sales my entire life. My dad was one of the best salesmen on the planet as far as I'm concerned. And we used to do work in the coal mines of West Virginia and Kentucky. And if you've ever heard of the stories about the Hatfields and the McCoys, that's a true story. I know Hatfields, I know McCoys. We used to do work every I guess it was 4th of July. We used to go to work whenever the holidays were. That's when they would have what are called shutdowns in power plants, paper mills, and coal mines. And we would go into Hatfield mining. We would go into McCoy mining. And the old stories, the reason that these prejudices, the old stories became true was because of, they say it was, I don't know what the stories were. I don't even remember what it said in the movie. But the real story is that somebody mistreated a young woman, and that started the feud. And there were babies that weren't even born yet that had no idea of this feud. And when they were born and raised to not like the other family. That's a Hatfield. You don't talk to Hatfield. You don't talk to McCoys. They're like, oh, okay. And that gets bred into them. That gets wired into them. Statistics show that when somebody is in listen carefully, when somebody is in a state, a personality, a personal reality for 3 generations, it becomes wired into their soul. So if you're the first one, I saw Brianna, I think it was, to say she's the first one to graduate of her family from college. Do you realize what you had to do to break that? Do you understand how powerful that sentence is? I was the first. What story do you have to separate yourself from right now to say you were the first? What stories do you have to give up right now that would allow you to step from last place to first place in the blink of an eye? How many of you, maybe a little bit more faith might be needed in your day? I know we talk about God. I know we mention him on an occasion. Sometimes there's people who are very religious, but they're not faithful at all. They go to church every day, but as soon as they're in the parking lot, they're like, those sons of bees, gosh dang it, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes it's not required for a building to be for you to be able to have your faith. Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt to gather all together. What would you have to separate yourself to have more faith? What would happen to the doubt you give away? What would happen to the doubt if it started to wither and die? Kind of like there's some bugs out there that absolutely don't eat the whole tree, but they just eat enough stuff and they can kill the whole tree. All they do is stop the food from reaching the branches. What's the food that needs to reach your branches? Maybe it's love. Who right now on this call today is having a tough day? If you're having a tough day, just type the word tough in the chat and let us send some love to you. If we're all connected in time and space, listen, if you're having a tough day, Steph, we're having a tough day. I choose to not have a tough day, so guess what? I'm sending you love. I'm sending you more joy. I'm delving into the deeper recesses of my resources, and I'm asking God to send me more love so I can send you more love. If you're a bucket, you're going to get stagnant. If you're a bucket, you're going to go bad. You need to be a conduit. You need to be a flow through. You need to be allowing life to flow through to you. And the reason that maybe you're stuck where you're at is you've shut off your input because your output is plugged. The input's ready to flow in. How many times have we had things flow in? How many times have we decided to go give something away? We give away $1 and we find 10. We give away 10, we find 100. We help somebody else sponsor somebody on their team, and all of a sudden 3 join ours. One of the things I remember when I started in this profession a long time ago, one of the things I remember is, man, how cool would it be? How cool would it be to be able to count the number of meetings that are going on in your own group? Man, I think it would be just so cool to have 2 meetings, to be able to see on a calendar. This is back when we used to use like calendars and different things, and to be able to mark on the calendar because the web wasn't out yet, but we would use the company's calendar, right? And they would promote the company's calendar and they would send that out in an email. And to see two meetings that were on the calendar and they were in your group. That was your group hosting that. That was your team hosting those meetings. 2 meetings. Man, I thought, man, if I had that, oof, I am on my way. Then I remember the day it happened. I said, what if it would be cool if 5 meetings were going on? I had to separate my old self. I had to separate my old story from I'm a 2 meeting in my group guy to I'm a now 5 meeting in my group guy. How many of you would like to see more meetings from your teams going on in your group? How many of you have meetings going on in your team inside of your group? Since the beginning of January, inside of my organization, still good, there's been 108 meetings that have happened. 108 that I'm aware of. But these aren't the little home parties or coffee parties. These are events that went on. Over 1,000 people, I think it's 1,300 people, guests have been presented to. I can comprehend it. I understand it. And then I ask the question, that's great. What's next? How can we serve more? How do we make that 2,000? How do we serve more? How do we become more? How do we get bigger and better so that we can be of more service to more? How can we help people who are struggling every single day with poverty, with lack, with poor nutrition, with education? How can we help the kids? See, I may have 30,000 people on my team, but what some of you may not know is there's about 127,000 people I'm responsible for. Because the person who enrolled, the person who said yes, or the person whose name is on the enrollment sheet, they'll always be able to take care of themselves. I'm worried about the people who aren't on the enrollment sheet. How many of you know the children's names of the families who have enrolled in your business? Why don't you separate yourself from worrying about the number of people who have enrolled to the number of people who are counting on you to lead them forward? This business is bigger than us, and it's bigger than the people that enroll in your business. Separate yourself from the idea that you have a team and begin to enroll yourself in the idea that it's important for you to get better. It's important for you to be vulnerable, because there's a little child sitting at home right now, has no idea what their mom and dad do when they leave the house, has no idea what they do when their mom or dad get on a Zoom call in the morning. I love when Shami says, my daughter listens to you on the call in the morning, and sometimes she even asks questions. I absolutely love that. Why? Because that's what we do this for. You all will be able to take care of yourselves. You realize that. The folks who are on here, the 96 people who are on here, you had the gumption. You like that word? There's something from the 1950s. You had the gumption. You got the guts. You got the cojones. You got the ability, the capacity, the capability to get on this call. What I'm worried about, what I concern myself about, is who's about to fall into your mindset, who's about to fall into your love, who's about to fall into your day, and am I doing enough on this call? I need to separate myself from my message and make sure I'm on mission. When I know I'm on mission, the mission is bigger than me. The mission downloads to me. That's how I come up with this stuff. I've had thousands and thousands of experiences. I'm living the mission, not my message, because my message is a mess. My message is a mess. But that's what allows me on my mission. My mission is to make sure that when somebody bumps into you today, they know that the power of God, the glory of greatness is what they just bumped into you, is to awaken yours. Use mine till you find yours. Yours is right inside of you. But wear all of ours as a cloak. Wear all of ours as a jacket around you, so that when somebody bumps into you, they get this energy. They feel this joy. Separate yourself from the old thing, from the old story that you're not good enough. You are, by gosh, good enough. You are, by God, good enough. You have a greatness inside of you that's waiting to come out. Separate yourself from the old story. When you shed it, sometimes we think that growth is like a snake shedding its skin. No, sometimes it's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. If you want to shed your skin, you're going to do that once a year. But when you go from the caterpillar to the butterfly, you transform. And sometimes your transformation is going to require you to turn into a whole bunch of mush. How does a caterpillar become a butterfly? Good Lord, I don't know, but that's God's little secret. You know what I am? I am glad he does it. How many of you are in the cocoon right now? How many of you have people on your team right now that have gone into the cocoon? You can't open that cocoon, because you'll do what? You'll kill them. But you do need to be prepared for when they come out of that cocoon. You do need to be prepared when they start to break out. You can't help them break out. If you help them break out, you will kill them. They need that energy. They need that push. They need that to force the blood into their wings. They need that to push themselves out. They need that to show that they can stand on their own 2 feet. But when they come out, they will be as fragile as anything. Sometimes we're walking people out of the cocoon of life, the cocoon of fear and doubt, and helping them realize what faith and courage feels like. Sometimes when we say a prayer over them, they're like, what is that? And that's just me praying over you. That's me sharing the goodness and the greatness that has been gifted to me and passing it on to you. What is that? Sometimes their wings are so gentle, but yet they come out and we go, fly, fly, fly. Sometimes it takes people years to find their wings. And when you're in the cocoon, sometimes we can't try to figure out the mess. We need to keep breathing. We need to keep expanding. We need to feel what it feels like to grow. We need to feel what it feels like to have change. This making sense? Separate. What would happen if the old story slowly started to fall away? Some of you know what it's like when you are passionately in love with somebody, when you have this most amazing night of togetherness. You've got to, we see it in the movies where they have these very passionate, romantic sessions in the movie, and clothes are flying everywhere and all of this other stuff. What old story needs to be separated from yourself like that, with passion, with love? So there you go. If you've got some questions or some comments, go ahead and raise your hand. I'd love to have a conversation. What'd you learn? What'd you like from this? Ronda Bird-Parker.
Yes, sir. How are you this morning?
I'm outstanding.
Oh, it's a good morning. You know, one thing that hit my thoughts real quick is I know you've ran some contests on Telegram for one-on-ones if they watch videos.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to remind everybody, if you get on this call and you sit and you turn your screen to just Sean and you listen, you're getting a one-on-one. If you take it in, write it down, digest it, and teach it again, it's a one-on-one. So just saying, take advantage of another one-on-one. And then I've already got 4 pages of notes just from listening to you. And there was a time, I think it was it in March? I think it was at the U+1 event you did, where you had us do some exercises. And you strongly impressed upon me to write down 100 amazing things that I'd done in my life. And I looked at you like you had 3 heads.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what? I have not done anything amazing. And I went home and I actually did the exercise. And y'all, I'm not gonna lie, I was proud of myself. The crap that I have lived through, the crap that I have survived, and then some of the amazing things that I did just because I showed up, I was blown away at my list. And the first 10 were hard. Thanks, Paulette. The second 10 were, and after about 30, I thought, I have not got enough paper to write down how amazing I have been in this life and how blessed I've been in this life. And it's that separation of that old story that kept trying to creep in saying, but you're not enough. You're not enough. You're not. Yes, Raymond, thank you. You're not enough. You don't have what everybody else has. You don't have this. You don't have that. I started the decision of that old story at that moment, and it started ripping away. And every time I would get on this phone call or I would call Sean, y'all pray for him. He has to not only put up with me every day, but he has to go on a road trip of 9 or 10 hours with me tomorrow. Every time I was around him, I would get fed into, I would get mentored, and that old story would separate and would separate and would separate. And then here's what's really, really cool. So my little girl turned 8 in December. and sitting on these phone calls, and even today on this phone call, I realized some of the things I've been saying to her that's putting my old story into her. What the John? I hope no one's on here named John. What the hey? There you go. No one's named Hey. What the hey? Why am I speaking old story Rhonda into new precious Amelia? And I thought, I got to stop that crap. And this call, I thought about that about a month ago. This call hit me again. And I thought, I'm allowing her to pick up my old story, generational curse, if you will, whatever title you want to put on it. And I'm going to limit her before she even gets started. So then as we're sitting here talking, and because I've been around Sean Murphy, probably way too much for his liking, but I don't care. My notes are totally different now. And I thought, every person I sit across from, every person I smile at, every person I get the honor to hear words out of their mouth and hear their story, am I putting into them my old story? Or am I putting in new, fresh, amazing qualities and story, feeding them a new story? What am I giving them? And if I haven't shown up, if I haven't journaled, if I haven't, for me, y'all know I need this. If I haven't read my Bible, if I haven't talked to Jesus, I'm going to tell y'all right now, y'all would not want to hear from me, because I would show up with a bunch of crap and throw it all over you and then wonder why you ain't in my business. And some people have been doing that to me on messages. And I'm having to really use a lot of Jesus in me to not go, hey, listen. But seriously, if you aren't getting better, you're going to feed your old story. You're going to end up like Rhonda was. And it's not going to happen till 40 years old that something's going to change. But showing up, cutting that decision off. I have people walking up to me now out of the blue going, your confidence level's changed. I know you've lost weight, but you look totally different. Everything about you is different. And these are people that I look up to. And they're coming to me, and it's all getting rid of that old story. And thank God Sean Murphy has shown up and did not rip me out of the cocoon and then did not go, fly, fly, fly. He just sat there and listened and allowed me to be. And if I can do that for one person, just one, even if it's for my little girl, my life will have meant something. And that is priceless. And that's why these phone calls are $1 million phone calls. And that's why Sean Murphy's time is worth so much more than what we realize. And I am so thankful. I am over here just floating. I know I'm sitting in a recliner, but I feel like I'm floating. Like, I feel like I'm totally floating. And all y'all, I feel y'all. I feel it all. Y'all are amazing. Every one of y'all. Show up. Separate that old story. Get rid of your parents' old story. Don't handle anybody else's old story. Every day, every second's new. Every moment's new. If you screwed up, 30 seconds ago, guess what? You got another 30 seconds. Step into your greatness. Y'all, this is amazing. I love you, Sean. I hope you are prepared to put up with me for 10 hours and then 6 days straight and then another 10-hour drive home. I love y'all.
Plus, we got 20 Latinos coming too, or 30 Latinos coming.
Yeah, you better watch Kayla. She gonna be doing the Jew do it. Jew do it.
Strong finger. Thank you, Rhonda, for sharing. It's always been a dream of mine, and every day I dream to have that impact. There's days I want fame. There's days I want fame. There's days my ego, right? I was watching a movie last night, And the guy said he's his nationality, so I'm going to use my nationality. How does an Irishman kill himself? He climbs to his top of his ego and he jumps off. That's how big our ego is. There's days I want fame, but that's maybe moments I want fame. Then I realize I'm after impact. So thank you, Ron, for sharing that. I love you tons. And I got to tell you, it's listen, let me explain to you. So you heard Rhonda's side of the story. Let me explain to you when you sit on the other side of the story, how it's easy to have the patience to wait, how it's easy to have the courage to wait, how it's easy to have the confidence to wait for the butterfly to emerge. So the way we were thrown together was an interesting scenario. A very dear friend of mine, we wind up meeting, having a conversation. I do my best to be there because she's this powerful woman, and it's a pretty good guess to think that powerful women are going to have a wall up, a shield up, and you can see that it's human nature. It's not even by design, it's almost by default. So when you show up and you give them praise and honor and you give them glory, all of a sudden there's like this, well, yeah, but you just don't know me. And then all of a sudden to sit there and to be present, to be able to be available for them. Listen, some of the team that started all of the success that's happening down in Latin America was 7 years of conversations. How long are you willing to wait for your success? How long are you willing to be present? Are you willing to be present for 7 years with powerful people, with people who you love? You heard Rhonda tell the story. It was March. We met each other back in December of 2018. All of March, all of 2019, up until June is until she started she actually tried to figure out how to make things not work. Something I shared with her, she goes, well, yeah, okay. And she did it out of respect, not because of friendship, out of respect, saying, well, all right, if you say it, she's smart enough to know that when smart people say things, but he doesn't understand all the things I know. Nothing works on my body, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, awesome. My point is, how long are you willing to develop the relationship? How long are you willing to sit outside the cocoon and encourage and give joy and give homage and give praise and just give? Because one day you'll be on a call and she'll say something like you said this morning, and it's like, I can't do enough. How can I do more for her? How can I do more with her, through her? How can I help Amelia? There's some other people on this call. The Roys, Paulette and Ronnie Roy are on this call. They've been in the industry for 26 years. Probably 27 years now. We've known each other for 3 years. Do you know what it means to have people like that who have faith and confidence in you? Ray Barbuto, who's on here, 20 plus years in the profession. Do you realize what it's like to have people like that show up on your calls? The giddiness that happens in my gut and in my heart when I see these souls who are like, they could be anywhere and they're showing up here. How long are you willing to wait? What's the old story that has to give up that allows you to wait in joy and peace? Maybe that's the issue. I waited for Rhonda, joy and peace and love and gratitude, and watching her grow and watching her absolutely go through these amazing challenges. Have some door-kicking conversations with her where I don't know whether I was kicking the door in or she was kicking the door in, and I was the one inside going, who's out there? It's me, it's Rhonda, I gotta talk. Okay. You free? I need you. I'm free. I'm free right now. Brandon, go ahead. You've got your hand raised.
Hello?
Good morning, Brandon.
Hey, good morning, Sean. I'm actually glad that I was next because Sometimes I gotta hop off. My wife usually calls and I talk to her before work. But yeah, man, I just wanted to say that I really, really appreciate this call. Just to elaborate a little bit more on yesterday. Man, like my job is just um, ever since I started working on my personal development through when I started IM, my perspective has totally changed. And every day that I drop the penny, every day that I drop a penny in the piggy bank, it builds momentum in me. And I know that over time, it's going to allow me to be able to just be able to make that impact that I desire, but in others, but also in myself. And I just really, really want to say that I appreciate Ivan again. Rhonda, I really appreciate what you said just now. And I appreciate Sean. I appreciate Nano. My job can be very, very stressful, but there's a lot of older gentlemen. I'm like one of the younger ones. I drive trucks, and there's a lot of older gentlemen. I guess they're jealous of me because I'm a lot younger and I make the same amount of money as them. And so what they do is they try to like pretty much take like pretty much bring me down to their level. But I refuse to allow them to do that because um, I have a wife and a daughter, and so I refuse to speak to anybody's level because of somebody else's belief. And so I really, really appreciate these calls because it's allowing me to realize that this is a community of people that are just like me, that think just like me, and like are very, very like positive. A lot of times I try to pour out the positivity, and they're just like they're just what their mindsets are is it's just not in receiving of that, and so um, I'm just like I try to help in any way I can with anybody, and I just look at it like pretty much they don't comprehend what or they're not experienced or they haven't read or they just haven't experienced it, they haven't seen it, and so I really appreciate these calls because I really really look forward to them. And ever since I started these calls, I had something to look forward to every morning because I didn't look forward to waking up to go to work, and so it's a little emotional, but I just really appreciate these calls.
So Brandon, I got to tell you, in my 55 years and in my tens of thousands of hours of having conversations, there's a part of you that the world has never heard before. I was there for the first time that I heard you speak, and that was today. And I know you spoke the other day, but today it was you speaking. Today it got you emotionally charged. Today your your daughter spoke to us. Today your wife spoke to us in this conversation. You are unique. You are special. You are a God-given gift to this planet, and right now we got to see it. Don't ever apologize for being emotional because your vulnerability gives us all strength.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you.
I love you. I haven't met you, but I know you. I've known you for eons. Your energy and my energy and all of our energies have circled in time and space. We came from the same place. We came from a blessing that said, you go to the earth and be a good example.
Hey, Brandon, it's Rhonda. Just something
Yes.
that hit me instantly. Two things. The first thing is you're in these guys' lives that seem to drag you down because you get filled every day. You fill yourself every day with love and positivity and kindness and energy and focus and direction. They need that. And they come to you and you feel like they pull stuff out of you to drag you down when they're actually just trying their best to get up near where you are. Because just like you didn't have something every morning and now you do, they don't. And they need that from you. And that's a mission. That's a purpose. It might not be growing your business per se, but it's growing your mission. And that is life changing. And then the other thing I want to welcome you to, you might not like this one, I'm on a mission with Sean. He has made me do this, and I'm glad he made me. And I said that properly because he made me. I'm learning to walk in forgiveness, constant forgiveness. And as I walk in constant forgiveness, I can forgive them. If I were you, I can forgive those men for saying and acting the way they do, because they don't even realize what they're doing and why they're doing it. And then I can give them the love and the support and the encouragement that they need. Just a thought for you today. And I love you tons.
Thank you. I love you guys too. I didn't think I was gonna get as emotional as I did, but I really appreciate it.
Brandon, we love you, bro.
Thank you.
Yes,
but yeah,
all love from here in Atlanta.
We love
to
you,
New York.
Brandon.
Love,
We love you, Brandon.
love everywhere, bro.
Eso, Brandon. Woo.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just every day I just keep going and just know that I know that they see that I'm doing something positive. They just don't see it for themselves, and so I it just keeps me going regardless, because every day regardless of what they say, every day I try to impact anybody's life the best way I can. By giving them a different perspective. And with these calls, it allowed me to see my purpose. And because I've always been the type of person to give any way I could, but this is just like an elevated version. And being on these calls, it allows me to pretty much, and I would have my camera on, but I drive trucks, so I'm like always moving around. But it allows me to pretty much like stretch my belief, but also like my thoughts. Like what Sean said about like imagining if you had two meetings going on at the same time. I never thought about it like that. I really never thought about it like that. And so when I seen that, because I'm actually just getting into journaling, and so with my journal, I'm still trying to figure out how to do things the right way. But I guess there really isn't the right way. It's just the way that works for you. But hey, I really appreciate it, because that's something I'm gonna put in there and think about every day, and just build that momentum and positivity and belief, because all it is a lack of pretty much faith, a lack of belief in yourself. In life, you always, like, I know for me, I wasn't never the school type. I went to college just to make my family proud and everything, but I know that school wasn't really for me. But what I'm realizing is it's not about making anybody else proud. It's about making yourself proud. And so I thank you guys.
Love you, Brandon.
Because when you make yourself proud, everybody else will be proud. And so that's what I fully believe.
You got it. You're on the right path. The sun's going to shine today, and it's not going to worry about whether somebody's good in life or bad in life. The sun's just going to be the sun. What we do with it is up to us. So you're the sun for these guys. What they do with it, they can yell and holler at the moon, but just keep shining bright. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate you, brother. We got Brian Dupre. Is it Dupree? Online too.
Where's that? Good morning.
Hey, Brian, good morning.
Yeah. Hey, man. Good morning, family. Quick comment and a question. Kind of like Brandon said, man. I've been really looking forward to these calls in the morning. You, Sean, and Nano as well, if you're still on the call, bro. Rhonda, you said something real quick that I kind of needed. You said that Sean has been kind of coaching you in forgiveness, and I understand the need for forgiveness, but I've had a few situations kind of compressed in the last few months that I think have really been testing or trying to push me towards forgiveness. Is there any advice or any tips that you guys can give me as far as moving forward in that?
Well, let's say it correctly. Sean hasn't coached me in forgiveness. Sean has shoved forgiveness down my throat and said, "Eat it, woman, you need it."
Right.
So that's the first thing, is you need somebody in your life that holds you accountable quickly and in the words you need to hear it, of forgiveness is what you're supposed to be doing. So the first thing I would tell you is find somebody and give them permission to speak straight up to you how you need to hear it to remind you that you need to be walking in forgiveness. And then the other thing I would do is I have to keep reminding myself, if I don't walk in forgiveness, I'm never going to be in true freedom, because I'm always going to be attached to whoever threw their junk on me or passed by me with it or whatever. So those are the two things I do. That's another reason why Sean gets a lot of phone calls from me. And there's sometimes he knows it, but I don't say it, that I got to speak it verbally to get it out of my body. And then I will forgive them. And if I forget, he will tell me, Rhonda, he says it a lot more forceful than that. And he says it how I need to say it, but that's our conversation. So those are the two things I would tell you to do. Get a strong accountability partner. And then remind yourself, if you don't want to be walking around with 900 pounds of everybody else's crap on top of you, you have got to walk into forgiveness, and you've got to stay in it. So it kind of makes you like a battleship, and it spitballs off a battleship. They can't touch you anymore. They can't affect you anymore. And you are iron on the outside, but still heart on the inside, because you're going to put up that shield. So Sean will have a whole better, eloquent way of saying all this. That's the East Texas version. And Brian, just identifying that you need to do that, that's huge. That's already turning the corner. Now it's just application. You got through the hard part of identification. Application is when accountability will help you. But I love you, and I know you can do it. Don't be walking around. I see you drinking your water. Don't be walking around with a bunch of people's crap hanging on to you. You're too pretty and too smart to be doing that. And you need to remember that. Okay, Sean, you do your version. It'll sound a lot better.
But it comes back to this.
Rhonda.
If you're waiting on somebody to forgive you, who's got the pain? Yeah. So how long do you want to hold on to that pain? How long do you want to own that story? And if you want to give that up today, just forgive. Forgiveness doesn't cost us anything. It costs us the story that we've been hanging out at coffee bars and the coffee pot at work telling people, you know, that son of a bitch 10 years ago, I saw him today. I think I saw him today, man. Next time I see him, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. Forgive him. What Rhonda won't tell you is when we get on these trips and or she calls me and I sit in silence, she goes, I know you're telling me to forgive them, but I did. Why don't they get it? I go, well, what do you think? And see, in silence, in that softness to Rhonda, that's as tough as a sledgehammer to her. Because there needs to be dialogue. When there's not dialogue, it's like it's wow. And I sit over here and I giggle on the other side of the phone. And she goes, well, aren't you going to say anything? Forgive? Yeah, but I know. Yes. So when you get frustrated, listen, I got people coming up from Latin America. We spent 15 grand on tickets. And I get a text last night. I got to pay for my luggage? Hell yeah, you got to pay for your luggage. I paid for your $1,000 ticket. Get your damn luggage. Pay for your luggage and get it on the plane, $25. No, that's not what I said. That's what I wanted to say. What I said was, I guess I made a mistake. That's all right. I'll take care of it. Awesome. Forgive them. Get on the damn plane, but forgive them. Does that help, Brian?
Can I add something to that?
Please.
So I was reading this book by Ian Van Sant called One Day My Soul Just Opened Up. And one passage that I read was, one day it was all about forgiveness. And so I just wanted to share a couple sentences that really just kind of helped me rethink about how I go about this. And so she states that most people believe that when you forgive someone, you are doing something for them. The truth is, when you forgive, you are doing it for yourself. As it relates to forgiveness, you must give up what you do not want in order to make room for what you do want. You must give up pain, anger, resentment, and fear in order to experience goodness, joy, peace, and love. For some reason, we believe that if we forgive someone, they may get to the good stuff before we do. Offering another the forgiveness they need strengthens the spiritual nature in you. It is this nature and your consciousness of this nature that reaps you the benefits of life. When you withhold forgiveness or love from anyone for any reason, it diminishes your awareness of the abundance of good in life. You are stuck in so much old stuff. New stuff has no way of getting to you. In essence, the good that you withhold from others will be withheld from you. So I just wanted to share that because I think that was, for me, it was very powerful. And it was just, I was able to just kind of rethink how I go about just forgiving people and just doing it for myself and not so much from somebody else, for somebody else. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. And again, here's the neat thing, folks. All of this is out there. That was in a book. Now, say your first name for me so I say it correctly.
Asia.
That's right. So Asia shared this, and here's the thing. It was written with the same 26 letters that every book we've ever read has been written in. She just put them in a syntax and in an order that made sense. And it triggered a memory in Asia so that she could find it and read it to us now. Here's the question I ask people when I'm looking to bring people, when I'm looking to sponsor people personally, who say, listen, I want you to be my sponsor. Awesome. One of the first questions I ask is, who are you waiting to forgive you? And who are you waiting to get a forgiveness from, to get a I'm sorry from? Because as soon as we get through that, we can get on with life. Because that ain't going to happen. If you're waiting on somebody to say they're sorry, ain't going to happen. Could. But the second
Sean, can I add to that, please?
Sure, go ahead, share.
So I personally wanted to talk because I relate to that. About maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago, I kind of got into, excuse my language, a stupid ass argument on Facebook it was a miscommunication, but it was my boy, my best friend since elementary school, 10, 12 years. And what I said hurt him and what he said hurt me. Right. So we had this, that you did it first, that I did it first. And then we both had, I guess, hate, you can call it, towards each other because we both felt the same exact emotion. And I was waiting for him to say sorry to me, and he was waiting for me to say sorry to him. And it doesn't help that we basically grew up the same. So we both had this egotistical problem, and your ego is probably your worst enemy. And I went months, probably 6 to 8 months. We didn't hear from each other. I didn't hit him up, nothing. And I was hurting, bro. Brian, I was hurting, bro. I was hurting because every weekend, if not every day, we would chill, we would hang out, we would do whatever we did. And I was hurting, not just because of what happened, but the fact that it was my boy, like you, out of everybody, to hurt me like that. And I was hurting, bro. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I was just heavy. And every day I was just heavy. And there's days like I would go on about my day, or I would be with my kids, and I would get that thought to be like, damn, and his name was Brian too. I'm like, damn, I should hit up Brian. Like, nah, fuck Brian. Like, nah, he did me dirty. And then I would just have this energy with my wife and then with my kids. And then I hate when my wife talks to me about the same thing over and over and over again. But then I turned into that same person because I kept telling her the same thing over and over again about Brian. And I was like, Brian did this, Brian did that, Brian did that. I'm like, damn, like, and I was really hurting. So it was New Year's, probably sometime around there. And I went about it the wrong way. And I didn't feel he deserved an apology from me because I had done so much for him. Like, I'm that friend, once you have me as a friend, like, I go above and beyond for you. So I've done so much. and I was hurting. So I went about it the wrong way, like a child, and I I I wrote a big comment on Facebook like a kid, right? But just because that's how I felt, like I wanted to respond to what I called his ignorance with ignorance, because I didn't feel he deserved an apology from me because I didn't do nothing wrong. So that what I wrote on Facebook was kind of like my letter saying bye to him. Like I was done with him. Like that was like I was writing my piece, and whatever, if he read it cool, but I was done with him. And then of course, us being the same person, you can expect the response I got. So I'm like, bro, you know what? I'm like, let's meet up. Like, let's meet up. Let's meet up. Let's obviously not to fight. I would never put my hands on him. But I'm like, let's meet up, bro. Let's meet up. Like, cause like this, like I wasn't me. I didn't recognize myself anymore. I wasn't this cool, happy, jolly person. I had this, I had a heavy heart that I was not cool with anymore. And then we met up, and he was kind of expressing to me what I said in the beginning, that I was just being biased, that I only cared about my point of view, that however he felt the same way. So we were expecting for each other to say sorry. But again, I went into the conversation hard headed. I don't want to hear nothing he had to say. I was like, yeah, cool, cool, cool. Yeah, all right, cool, cool, cool. I was like, all right, bro, peace out. Like, peace out. I'm not cool with you. Like, you did me dirty. Like, what you did was like, no, like, that's not cool. I've done too much for you to do me like that. And then that was late, probably 11, midnight. And I didn't sleep that night because I wasn't cool with how it ended. I wasn't like 12, 13, 14. That's what it came down to. Like, some bullshit. And then I texted him in the morning. I'm like, bro, I'm like, call me. I'm like, call me like if you're alone though, because he's always like with somebody. I'm like, when you wake up, call me if you're alone, bro. And he called me. I'm like, bro, I'm like, last night was some bullshit, bro. Because when I saw you, I just wanted to laugh. When I saw you, it was like I don't even remember anything. I just wanted to start joking. Like I just like all of it went out the window. Like, bro, I'm like, we're really about to conversate about some dumb shit right now. But then my ego was still hurting. My ego was still hurting that I was like, no, like I'm not about to, I don't care how much joy I got from seeing your face. My ego is still in play that, nah, I'm not fucking with you. Excuse my language, Sean. That's just how I curse a lot when I'm in that. But I'm like, no, I'm no. So I went to sleep. I'm like, last night could have been such a different story. We could have just laughed and joked, and we could have just forgot about 6, 7 months, and everything would have been cool. But he came to me like a human and expressing to me his emotions, but I was still caught up in my ego. And there's a book called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. That it talks about your ego and your ego and your ego. And that was probably like 2 years ago. And he's one of the first people I text when because I'm almost on the call every day, that that we text our 3 people. I'm like, bro, I love you, bro. Like, cause like it was so stupid. So stupid. And my wife laughs at me sometimes. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna call Brian. Like, you remember you guys were like, and it was funny because his wife told him the same thing. She was like, Manny, like, out of everybody, you're gonna be mad at Manny? And then my girl was like, out of everybody, you're gonna be mad at Brian? So it was like, it was 2 idiots caught up in their ego. And we said the same thing to each other, like, bro, like these 6, 8 months were so dumb because I wanted to pick up my phone and call you. But then when I saw your name, I would remember that we argued and I would get mad. And then I was going through the same emotions with each other. And then it was New Year's or Christmas or whatever. And I wanted to say New Year's to you. I'm like, no, I hope he has a bad year. Like, no. But it was it was just that forgiving. It was just, it's not cool, man. It's not cool. Having that heavy heart, I don't wish that on nobody. And it was extra heavy because who I was in it with. But that heavy heart stuff, man, that's such a burden. That's such a burden. And I think that's like one of the things you need to be the most selfish in, just forgiving. Even if whoever hates you, whoever they don't want to forgive you, cool, but I forgive you. I forgive you, bro. Cool, no problem. I have no hate towards you. I have no animosity towards you. I wish you become successful before I do. I don't have no type of hate towards you, bro. And just forgive. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but those 6, 7, 8 months I went through, I don't wish that on nobody. When it could have all just, I could have just called them that same day. Like, bro, I'm sorry, like whatever you misunderstood on Facebook, bro. You know, I will never come at you like that. My fault. Like let's hang out tonight. You know that's nonsense. Like I'm always in your corner no matter what. And it would have been done. It would have been done. But as guys, and especially from where we come from, our ego is that man. Oh, it's not cool. He gotta forgive me first. And that's lame, bro. That's lame. That's so lame. That ego stuff. Like I see people with crazy egos now. I be like, why? Like I feel like an ego is for losers now. Like imagine if we all had egos in here. Imagine we all had egos in here. You think I'd be sending hearts out to people? Oh, what if my friends saw me sending out hearts on this Zoom call? Bro, no, I don't care. I don't care because it's so important to vibrate on a higher frequency. It's so important. And that's the only way to really elevate. When your conscience is pure, when you could go day to day and just go to sleep and know that every single person I met, I smile to. Every single person I have, you know how many people I hold doors open for and they don't hold the door and they don't say thank you? And I kind of want to just be like, excuse me, like, you're welcome. But no, I don't care because I'm not holding it for you. I'm holding it because it made me happy. It made me happy to open that door for you. So it's just forgive. I know it's easy to send it done. I just wanted to share that story because it was the stupidest phase of my life. And it was the worst phase of my life because it was probably like my darkest moments because I couldn't call my best friend and he couldn't call me over stupidity. And that's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Manny. Thanks, brother. Thanks for sharing that story. I'm sure every one of us heard an old story of our own in that. So I appreciate you in that. Let's go to Bree. Bree, we've got you. We've got 3 more folks, and then that'll pretty much wrap it up for the day. Hey, Bree, go ahead. Bree Shavers.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So I had just a quick question. So about the forgiveness, like I don't really know how to like begin this statement, I guess. But I grew up in a single parent home, and I grew up with my mom. But how do you go about truly forgiving someone if it's a parent and you've been hurt by this parent, but that like in a sense their story is a part of yours? So I guess like I'm in a position now where I'm trying to, fully forgive and kind of separate myself from that previous story, but I'm having trouble doing that.
So Bree, are you driving right now?
I am.
Okay. So I won't take you through the exercise that would help you relieve that, but I'll give you an insight to it, and maybe we can do that in a call. But where'd your mom grow up?
Say that one more time.
Where did your mother grow up?
Chicago.
So I want you to picture her when she was 5 years old. What do you think she was doing when she was 5 years old?
Probably playing around her house with my grandparents.
Okay, so she was
and her
playing around
siblings.
her house. Do you think she had a good childhood?
No.
So do you think that when she was 5 years old, she said, when I have this beautiful daughter, I'm going to name her Bree and I'm going to make her life miserable?
No.
So when she was a child, she learned this and she was taught this, and maybe she did the best she could. And part of her story is maybe it's the strength that's in your testimony. But when she was 5 years old and 6 years old and 8 years old, there's something that happened to her that caused her to have to be able to be as defensive as she was and as strong as she was, maybe in a positive, maybe in a negative way. but there's probably not a part of her that when she was 5 years old said, I'm going to make my daughter suffer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And I
It
know
definitely does.
it's a tough thing for you to hear while you're driving, because there's too many of your external things that are happening that are causing you to still have to stay safe, and that's why I say that. But if you just sit back at that moment, and then you go back to when you were 5 years old, and you go back to your 5-year-old, when you remember some tragedies or challenges that happened, just before the challenge happened, just before the yelling happened, just before whatever it was that happened, whisper into your own ear, because you recognize yourself, but whisper into your own ear and tell yourself you're a genius. You will change the world for better. Give her a little kiss on her cheek, and then you come back to today and watch what happens to the story that sits in your body.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
There's a lot to it. It's easier than a 3 minute.
Yeah.
I wanted to give you things because the question you asked had depth, which means you could understand the depth that I would feed back to you. So that when your mom was 5, she was this amazing little child as well. Something happened to her that caused her to do this, and it wasn't that she didn't have this goal when she was 5 to say, I'm going to make my beautiful daughter breathe with this most amazing hair. I'm going to give her a challenge in her life, a scar in her life that she'll carry forever. Paulo Coelho, in his book Manuscript Found in the Cross, says that the scars you carry are stronger than the sword that made them, because you've won the battle.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Okay, and we can talk more about it. Reach out to me, and I'd love to help you through that challenge.
Okay, I definitely will do that.
There's a clarity in your voice that understands it, and there's an old story that's going, yeah, but it's not that simple. But we'll work through that if you help.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate you, man.
Love you tons. Thanks, Brady. Let's go to Shammy. Shammy on line 2.
Good. Hello, Sean.
Good morning.
Good morning. So this past few topics are like really kind of get me a little emotional, especially this one. I want to speak more about the separation and I guess the forgiveness. Like Bree mentioned, I actually stopped talking to my mom for a few years. A few years ago, I stopped talking to a lot of people for about 3 years. My mom was one of them, and when I started to talk to her again, forgiving and all that, what made it easy for me was that way of thinking, just thinking like everything that my mom had been through, how hard her life was in the past, and how her mother was with her, and then thinking about how my grandma mom was with her, and like all the backstories back to all my grandmas, how they grew up and how their life was, made me realize that my mom tried her hardest and that I shouldn't be mad. I should be thankful. And that was a really big relief for me when I started thinking about it that way. It made me, because me and my mom were close when I was young, even though of a lot of things that were in my environment that weren't appropriate. And I don't know, that's more stuff more in depth that I didn't really want to like go into details. What I wanted to say was about the separation. It makes me think about rewriting my story differently, because I always would think, okay, so what I want is to rewrite my story. But with your explanation today about separation, it makes me think more of like maybe having 2 books. Hypothetically, maybe having 2 books instead, having like the old story in one book and rewriting my new story in a new book. Like that's kind of a realization of your call today, that to me, that maybe I've been thinking about it not wrong, because I know I haven't been thinking about it wrong, but different ways of thinking about stuff is what I've been realizing on all these calls. And that separating from your old story to to create the new seems more to me like instead of rewriting a whole new story, it's more about having two books, an old book and a new book, you know?
So here's the good news. If you have the old book and the new book, eventually it's all part of which book?
My life, my book.
Yeah, the you book. Sometimes it doesn't hurt. Just like we don't learn all of the alphabet as one letter, A and B are separate, right? A and M are separate, but they're all part of the alphabet. So sometimes it helps to separate things, but sometimes when we put them together, letters together make words, words together make sentences, sentences together make paragraphs, paragraphs together make books, books together make a story. So right now, it works for yourself, it works for your brain, it works for your psyche to be able to have the two distinct stories so that you can absolutely look at them in their greatness. Right? If anybody's ever been to a network marketing event, who are the people that get the stand-up recognition? Listen, if you've reached the first rank in the company, stand up. They don't even get to walk on stage. They're just community recognition. Sometimes this book, maybe it can't be recognized together with the news story. It does need to have its own recognition so that you can actually look at it for what it's worth, look at it for strength that it's brought you. So yeah, I'm glad that realization came to you and that idea came to you. Understand that even those two books written by you, they're always yours.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you also for the exercise. I'm gonna definitely do that today. I write down 100 things I've done amazingly, but I'm gonna do 50 just because I don't want to like go crazy trying to think about more. I mean, if more come to mind, then I'll definitely write them down. But do that exercise because it's something I've never done and I never thought about it that way. Or the amazing stuff that I've done.
Can I make 100 easier for you?
Can what?
Can I make 100 easier for you to do?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay. So let me make it easier for you the way your mind works. I want you to write down 200, not just 100.
200?
No, I want you to do 200, but you're going to do half, so just do 100.
Okay. I just don't, I mean, I'll work my brain to come up with 100. I just thought I couldn't come up with 100, but I'll definitely work my brain to try to come up with 100.
You realize that based upon the noise I'm hearing cooing around you and gooing around you, that little baby that's around you, you realize there's 100 amazing things you did with just her. Has she ever had a cold?
Yes.
Did you help her through it?
Yes.
Did you ever fall down and bang her elbow or her knee and you kissed it?
Yes.
Yeah, see, there's 20 things right there. I'm saying that they don't have to be statutory, but they're life memory work. So just start writing. You'll come up with more than 100.
Yeah, I'll do that. Your call the other day on inspiration was wonderful. I have to say it was wonderful. All the questions were so helpful. I've answered most. I answered the first all the first ones, and then you did a second call with the inspirational questions, like more advanced. I haven't done those already, but when I answered those questions, it was such so emotional and inspirational in itself just to answer them, because like my children are my inspiration, and being a different mom than what I was gifted is my inspiration as well. So I have to say that call was amazing, and those questions were so helpful. Thank you so much, Sean.
Thank you, Shami. Thank you for using them. That's a great job.
Yes.
Hey, Ivan, we've got you online too. Go ahead, Ivan. Thank you, Shami. Love you. Good morning, Ivan.
Good morning, Sean. How you doing today, man?
Outstanding.
That's good to hear. I'm actually glad that you helped me yesterday. You actually helped me break my paradigm of my own personal fear yesterday. But as I hear other people's story about forgiveness, so I had I feel like even though I was putting all this fear on myself and all this pressure on myself, like how would you forgive yourself? Because at the end of the day, you're the one who's living under your skin.
So in forgiving yourself, the biggest challenge with forgiving yourself is what's going to be the new story.
So we have to be the ones creating this new story.
You're the one creating. You got to forgive yourself. What happened? How did the story show up? If you were reading a book and you opened the book and it started with this chapter you have in your life right now, what was the story that led up to that? So whatever, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. But whatever that story was that led up to that, you've got to look back at it and go, is that really important? Who's carrying around the poison? Who's drinking the poison right now, hoping other people will die? The story that you have of lack, of you're not good enough, you're not tall enough, you're not short enough, you're not white enough, you're not dark enough, your hair's not long enough, it's not short enough. The story is all made up by you. The story was given to you by somebody else. When you were 5 years old, did you have this problem?
Yes.
When you were 5 years old, you had this story?
Yes.
Okay, when you were a baby, when you were an infant at 2 months, did you have this story?
Kind of correlates to that, yes.
Okay, so then guess what? This is part of your life. What do you have to forgive yourself for? If it's been ingrained in you, if it's been part of you since then that's just part of your story. What do you have to forgive yourself for if it's part of who you are? My right arm is longer than my left arm. Why would I beat myself up about that? That's just what it is.
Wow. That's
right?
Yeah.
If it's who you are, so what happened was other people made fun of you because of this story. Other people may have known this story, or you were afraid the story was going to get out and you didn't want anybody to get out. And so when somebody found out about the story, it makes you different. It makes you unique. Let me ask you this. How many people have whatever it is you have that you've had your entire life? How many other people have the same thing?
Few people. But it's just like the fact that I can relate to you just because of what you told me is just like, wow, like, I guess I'm not the only one.
So here's my point. So if there's only a few people, why are you looking at it as there's something wrong with you when you're the one that's actually unique? The rest of us are all average. You're above average.
Yeah, it's just that I feel like I always didn't want to feel people. I guess it was more like I don't even want people to look at me different or be seen as an outcast in a way, or being, I don't know, just being different in a way.
So let me ask you this: are you working on a plan right now to live your dreams and to have more of what you want?
Yes.
You're already an outcast.
Wow.
Are you looking at a way to be able to help people have more of what they want and less of what they don't?
Yes.
You're already what's called a shepherd. You're an outcast. When the wolves show up, the shepherd doesn't run.
Wow.
It's easy to be a shepherd when there's no wolves around. The shepherd needs to show his butt up when the wolves show up. The wolves show up every day. You're asked to be a shepherd every day, brother. You're asked to be this one, to be able to guide, to be able to stand tall. For those people who don't have the issue you have, for those people who are average and trying to just step up, take one step up, you've been put on a pedestal. You're the one with arrows in your back. You're the one with a target on you because you're different, because we can actually see or say something that you're different. Yeah, you're going to be different. You're already a different because you're an entrepreneur. You're on this call. It makes you different.
You're right. And I feel like
it ain't about me being right. It's about you being right.
It's just that I haven't never seen it in that perspective in a way. And it's just like, I feel like I should be proud of who I am and my own story in a way. But the thing with me was like, so yeah, remember how yesterday we were talking about me speaking up and all that? I feel like it kind of correlated with what I'm saying today too, was just like, I basically didn't feel the same way. But like, for me, it was like, I didn't want people to know about it or share about it or anything like that. I feel like I was just like keeping it to myself. And, I just recently started being open about it, and I guess I got more love from what I thought, more love than judgment, I guess, in a way, just because I've overcame so much things growing up and being able to, like you said, like becoming an entrepreneur and doing everything that I'm doing now. It literally helps people, relate to my story too. I'll be honest with you, I had a lot of people yesterday message me on Instagram. I don't know, what you're sharing love. And I felt like, wow, like that, like I was like, I feel like I wasn't the only one going through a bunch of stuff in a way.
So how does that feel that you're shedding this old story?
I feel accepted, honestly.
Cool. And so now here's the question. Since you haven't been in so long, and now all of a sudden in 24 hours you got to be able to be strong enough to make sure that you accept that story and don't do something that's going to allow the old story to show back up. Just stay in that acceptance.
Accepted.
Say the words, I am enough.
I am enough.
Whenever you can do that. There was a whole year of my life where I said that. I must have said it 1,000,000 times, literally. Driving at a traffic light, I'm enough. I'm enough. I'm always enough. In every moment, I'm enough. In every situation, I'm enough. And you know what? There were some situations that came up that my enough was a category 5 growth of being enough. Shocked the hell out of me that I was able to be enough in that moment. I'm like, hey, there's no way in the world I'd ever think that I was ever going to be enough in that moment. I didn't know I could be prepared for that moment. But evidently, when that moment showed up, I was enough.
Wow. And I feel like, you know, just me breaking that paradigm of disbelief helped me a lot. And I want to just thank you for that, you know.
Well,
I
want to thank you for holding the phone up so I could look you in the eye.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Ivan. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
You're special. You are more than enough in every moment and every breath. You breathe in faith and courage and exhale fear and doubt. The world is grateful for you to be in this moment at this time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Outstanding. Bona, we've got you, man. How are you?
Good morning, son.
Go ahead. We can hear you.
All right. First of all, thank you, son, for giving us the opportunity to come here every morning and feed our minds. We appreciate your good work, son.
Well, it's always good to have you here, Bonaventure. Appreciate you.
Okay. Sean, I have a question.
Sure.
Is it possible for someone not to be coachable and they think they are coachable?
No, that never happened in the world. Absolutely, with every breath. What they want is they want to be coachable. They don't want to give up their old story. And as soon as they hear coachable, they hear change. And when they say they're coachable and they're proving they're not, you can ask them to do a simple thing. And the simple thing is, can they sit quietly for a minute? But yes, the answer to your question is absolutely 100% yes. People tell me they're coachable all the time. This is why it's important for you to remember this phrase. Go where you're deserved, not where you're needed. When somebody tells you they're coachable and they don't do it, those are people who are needing you. Those are people who are wanting you. Those are people who are going to show up every day, and you're going to keep going, oh, why do I keep going over this every day? Well, I'm supposed to be good to my team. I'm supposed to be good to my people. Go where you're deserved, not where you're needed. Give them a task, and when they get the task done, they get back on your calendar. That's it. Nothing big. Listen, you said you were going to do X, whatever X is. You were going to watch the video. You were going to replay. You were going to review the call. You were going to go prospect somebody. When you get that done, when do you think you'd get that done by? Let them pick the date they're going to get it done by. Well, I'll get it done by tomorrow. Awesome. Call me when you get it done. And that's it. Put the onus on them. Put the burden of activity on them. And when you put the burden of activity on them, that means they take a step. Now it means you can take a step. Does that help?
Yes, John. That helps. Second one is, how can someone be more coachable?
They have to have desire. They have to realize that every one of us who's coachable realizes we're broken and we're putting our pieces together. We haven't lost our pieces. We're trying to scatter them. We're trying to put them back together. And coachable means somebody's going to help us put those pieces back together a little bit better than we found ourselves. And if they don't want to change their story, they're not coachable. Say, you know what? Thanks. Let me know when you're ready. Just let me know when I'm coachable. I haven't proved it to me. Let me know when you're ready. Go do this task. And when you get that task done, come back.
Okay. That's great, Sean.
Awesome.
Last question. Sure. For someone like me who finds it difficult to talk in front of people, what kind of questions should I ask someone who knows how I can get out of it?
Ask me the question a different way.
All right. Someone like me who finds it difficult to speak in front of people.
Okay.
If I find someone who can help me get out of it, what kind of question should I ask the person to give me the kind of answer that I need to work on myself better?
Would you be, so the question you would ask them is would you be open to helping me? Would you be open to giving me some guidance to help me acquire some of the talent you have? Would you be willing to help me? That'd be a big question. Could I ask for your help? You have a skill, a talent that I think is pretty amazing. Would you be willing to help teach me that?
Okay. That's great. That's great, Sean.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the question Ivan asked yesterday. Because that really, the nugget was so cool. Like, right now, you can see I raised my camera unlike before. That was cool.
I love it. Look at that duplication. And Ashley, we've got you. Last call of the day. Good morning, Ashley. ASHLEY. Maybe Ashley's getting someplace where she can ask a question. Well, there you go, folks.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I thought I had my unmute on. What I was saying was for today, I think what I got the most value from is Ivan when he last talked about being enough. This is a conversation that I've had recently with someone that is very dear to me, and that's kind of been something that they've been pressing to me for a while. And I think the hardest thing for me is everybody else sees it in me, but I don't see it in myself. And then two, they were talking about ego. I have a very strong ego. Like I can be very stubborn. And I don't know, a lot of the times it makes me I think, revert back to old ways as far as thinking and like just being very emotional about things that didn't need as emotional of an approach. And so I guess my question is, what are the steps that I need to take to not necessarily rectify that, but I guess begin healing in that sense? Because I feel like if it's something that is continuously being spoken into me by somebody and somebody else sees it and I acknowledge it, I just don't know how to go about putting the steps forward to change, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. So here's the thing, Ashley. Would you say that there's two sides? There's two sides to everything. It's called the law of polarity. There's two sides to everything, right? So yes. There's ego that's edging God out, and then there's ego that's energy going onward, Godward, and upward. You just got to decide which ego you're going to sit from. When people who are proud in their faith, when joy happens, when there's a birth in the family, when there's a marriage in the family, people get very egotistical. They want to tell people. They want to shout it from the rooftops. When you fall in love with somebody, you want to tell everybody. Everybody knows it. So when you fall back in love with your story, when you fall back in love with your dreams, some people are going to call it ego, but it's because they think you're a witch on a broomstick because they want to hold you back. They're going to call you names. They're going to try to pull you back. That's edging God out. That's edging your own glory out. That's edging your own goodness out. EGO, edging goodness out. But when you decide that you're going to raise yourself to the next level, that's energy going onward, Godward, and upward. Mark Victor Hansen taught me that. So when people say you have an ego, say, you got to ask them, which one? Which ego do you see? And don't be surprised they can only see your ego through their glasses. Doesn't matter how you feel, how you show, how you act up. They can only see your ego through their glasses, and they see it as you being better than me, which is probably what you need.
Okay. Thank you.
So you're asking me how to judge, how to quench your ego, how to put your ego in check in the right place in the right moment. When I've got to ask you, have you seen how they see your ego? Look at the story that they come up with when they tell you you're being brash, you're being bold, you're being whatever it is you're being. The people that you're talking to, I know this is going to sound crazy, but might you be taller than them?
Majority, yes, or if not, like same height.
Okay. So would it be fair to say maybe is there a chance do you have a some kind of education that's higher than theirs?
About even now, about even.
So
I just think
are you being
our pursuits are different.
Yeah, your pursuits are different. So your pursuit is different than are their pursuits all pretty similar and yours is wildly different?
Yeah.
Yeah, so now all of a sudden you understand where they're judging your ego from. They can't even say, it'd be like me trying to tell you how to drive. You close your eyes. Ashley, you close your eyes and I'll drive the car. See, now you need to giggle at them next time they say that stuff to you, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You close your eyes. Your car's not moving because I can see out your back window, so it's not moving right now. Well, if it does start moving, I'm going to tell you, close your eyes and, okay, little left, little right, okay, little faster on the, whoa, step on the brake. You're like, how? You can't even see where I'm going. How are you going to tell me what I should be doing?
Right. That's true. Mm-hmm.
You see you see her responses. This is why I sometimes change the way that you guys respond when you say I'm right. Ashley didn't say I'm right. She said it's true. That means that she knew this answer. It's just that she didn't want. There's a part of her that didn't want to believe that her friends were actually trying to keep her from. Ashley, you're amazing. In case anybody
Thank you.
There's a couple of comments in the chat here that says you're beautiful.
It's okay.
Thank you.
How do you feel now that you heard that answer that way?
I feel a lot better. I think it shifts my perspective on how I was thinking about it. Because I think a lot of the times, I think the last time I was on the call, Rhonda was talking about your addiction to approval. And that's kind of been something that I've struggled with as well. And I think that is what has distorted my perceptions of myself.
Yep.
Because I was so used to taking in what everybody else said that either I was or wasn't or whatever without being able to consciously either agree or disagree with those things and see it from my own perspective. I think it cut out a little.
Cigarette.
Hold on.
Okay.
So I'm glad, Ashley, that helped. All it was
is
just to change the way you look at things and the things you look to change. Awesome. Continue forward, my girl. You are on your journey of greatness. All right, there you go. Appreciate you all. I'd encourage you to go onto the YouTube channel, find this video, episode 333, and leave a comment what you learned, what you like. I'm going to be picking some folks to do some 30-minute one-on-ones with, because I want to be self-full, a little selfish, self-full, and start driving some traffic to the YouTube channel. I'm getting a lot of responses, so thank you guys for all of your comments, all of your joys. Thanks for being on this call again, 2 hours. I'm gonna do my best to try to get them back down into the hour range, just because, so that all of this greatness that we share, maybe we need to figure out a way. I need to get better at figuring out how we start out with this. But like I said, every day, all of these great calls, some of the greatest gems happen here at the very end. And from the 100 people that were there, we're now down to the 22 people who are like, I ain't going nowhere. So I appreciate y'all. I love you tons. I'm Sean Murphy, founder of Mental Profits, and I'll see y'all where? At the next event. Y'all say bye to each other.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, y'all. Love y'all.
Bye, y'all. Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.